Okay, in this teaching module, we're looking at the marginal revolution in economics and how that relates to subjective utility. The key work here is Carl Menger, Principle of Economics, 1871. 1871 to 73 was the marginal revolution in economics, where concurrent with the advent of psychology, and this says the Wundt curve, one of the first psychologists, Wundt. So concurrent with the emergence of psychology, you get a new theory of value in economics, where something has value because it's demanded, not because it's produced, not under the labor theory of value of Smith, Ricardo, and Marx. You're getting a different theory of value. Something has value because it's demanded. And this says utility and subjective value. So only an individual knows what brings them value, subjective value. Only an individual knows what they need and want at a given time and place. So it's subjective utility, individual utility. Something has demand, something has economic value because it's demanded by somebody. And the reason it's demanded by somebody is because it brings value, it brings utility. So this is the Wundt curve. You'll see that over time and quantity, something will bring you increasing value until the point where it brings you decreasing utility, and it actually can bring you disutility over time. So an example of this would be somebody's very thirsty in the desert, and they're able to get water, but then too much water, it becomes torture or disutility. So the marginal revolution in economics is based on this idea of utility, and economists end it here. But it's psychology of what it's based on. You actually have disutility and consumption, which is impossible in economics because you will trade off before you experience disutility. So what you've got then, this is an individual's utility function for apples. So this says utility and quantity. So the first apple you have will bring you this much utility. The next apple you have will bring you a little bit less utility. The next apple you have will bring you a little bit less utility. And the fourth apple you have will bring you even less utility. So this concept is known as diminishing marginal utility. So people think at the margin. They're trading off incremental decisions hundreds of times a day. Only certain decisions are all or nothing decisions, such as who you'll marry, if you'll have children, where you'll live, where you'll go to college, buy a house. These are all also subjective or marginal decisions, but less so than normal consumption-based diminishing marginal utility decisions. So what people will do is they'll trade off between apples and oranges and bananas and whatever else, tacos and burritos and donuts and whatever else. You're trading off at the margin, consuming amongst the different goods until you're maximizing your utility at the margin. So instead of having a second apple, you'll perhaps have an orange because that'll bring you more utility. So you're maximizing your utility at the margin in consumption. So what I should note is that Menger was a continental philosopher from Austria. So his idea behind utilitarianism, this says French utilitarianism. Menger was more of a French utilitarian than an English utilitarian. English utilitarians, they wanted a utilitarian society where elites are in charge. And you get an elite ruling class. And in the utilitarian society, the elite ruling class knows best. And that's English utilitarianism, which is different than French utilitarianism. French utilitarianism is, to summarize it, is a search for order, where individuals are trying to search for meaning and patterns and order in life. And that the act of action is what brings you utility, the act of choice. So the idea behind the marginal revolution and subjective utility is that individuals act to maximize their utility, in this case, in consumption. Diminishing marginal utility, you now have in the marginal revolution in economics, something has value because it's demanded, and you can understand demand through the idea of diminishing marginal utility. Then with the Keynesian Revolution in the 1930s, World War II, 1940s, and then the scientism period of 1940s, 1950s, you start to get mathematical oriented economics. And so then this idea of subjective utility, now what we're assuming in mainstream economics or neoclassical economics, and again, most economists are Keynesian or neoclassical economists. You assume that consumers are willing and able to pay. So they enter the market with known, knowable, and unchanging preferences. So economists assume that the individual knows what their consumption preferences are, and they enter the market with the ability and willingness to pay into that market. And then so this allows mathematical optimization modeling, making these assumptions. Then you can start modeling preference curves and production functions, and then using the idea of utility maximization to model the economy, which then allows experts to then model and tweak and guide the economy, Keynesian experts in regulation and macroeconomic policy making. So therefore, this idea then of Menge, who was a non-mathematical economist, he was a subjective utility theorist, where only individuals know themselves what brings them value, and then they act towards realizing that value. That now has all changed under modern neoclassical economics, starting with the World War II and post-World War II period. And these assumptions then allow mathematical optimization modeling, and therefore expert planning of the economy. So the whole idea of original subjective utility has kind of been turned on its head due to economics becoming a profession with experts given special privilege under law to manage the economy by the state. So the whole idea, to summarize, marginal revolution in economics, things have value because they're demanded, and only an individual in the original formulation, only an individual knows what brings them subjective value, and they realize that through action under the construct of French utilitarianism. And Edmund Phelps has an article in the New York Review of Books, which is available on my website from 2015. It's called "What is Wrong with the West's Economies?" And he says that this idea of English utilitarianism has removed creativity and self-determination from individuals, which has then made a less flourishing and economic flourishing and individual flourishing society due to this turn of the original utilitarianism into French utilitarianism, into the now in use through experts, English utilitarianism. So that completes our teaching module on the marginal revolution and subjective utility. Thank you.